Hi, my name is Rachel Honda. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and this is StraitJacket Podcast with...
I'm Jeff from Mental Health Resource.
I'm Courtney, a therapist and student, and currently getting my master's in clinical counseling.
Awesome. So, Courtney, why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got into all of your work that you're doing now?
Well, originally, it started in high school. She was an acquaintance at the time, and she came up to me, and I recently got saved. Like, I'm a Christian, so I recently got saved in church, but I was doing some crazy things at the time, and I didn't think that it was, I was just living my life. But she came up to me and she was like, so God told me to start a group with you, like a club with you on campus. And I was like, first, I have so many questions. God talks to you. That's wild. Like what? What did he say? I'm curious. And I'm also scared because he knows I've been tripping. But what's the club? And then she told me I want to do like a club for the teenage girls on campus. And for some reason, I was extremely interested, and I was not expecting that to be the case. But I was like, actually, that sounds like really fun. So, okay, let's do it. And then and I was like, okay, well, what do you want to talk about? She was like, I want to talk about real life things. We'll talk about relationships, abuse, parent relationships, school stuff. Like, I just want to talk about everything, but I want to talk about like deep things. And she was like, we're not going to preach, but I do want it to be like biblically based. And I was like, that sounds like fun. Like, I actually want to do this. Okay. And it ended up being like amazingly successful, like on campus. So much so, like, the principal came up to us and like thanked us for like how the kind of impact that we had on the kids, on the girls specifically. And we would run out of room in the classroom, like we run out of seats, like we run out of space, and it was like really, really cool. And it was because of the topics that we talked about. Like, I don't think anybody was expecting to talk about like, sexual abuse that they experienced when they were 7 years old in high school. They're not, you're not thinking about that. And a lot of the times it's not really something that, especially at the time that it was early 2000s. So, that wasn't a conversation, not everybody was open to discussing stuff like that. So, when we opened up the topic, we would literally send out notes during like a passing period and be like, piece of paper, hey, we're having Real Deal club today. And they were like, oh my gosh, okay, we're gonna go. So it became like a thing for the whole year, and it was our senior year of high school. And I mean, from then on, I was like, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. Like, I want to do this. And I didn't know in what capacity as years continued to move on. I just knew that I wanted to be a therapist, and I knew I wanted to be a therapist for teenage girls. I just didn't know what that meant. So then I went to college. I studied behavioral health, and then I got pregnant after my freshman year of college with my ex-husband. And it went from me saying I wanted to get my PhD by 28 years old to immediately like, oh my gosh, I'm about to have a small child and I don't know what to do, So that was pretty wild. And then soon after that, I had my second daughter. And so I kept having to leave school and then go back and then leave school again and then go back. But the plan was always to do what I want to do. Like, I never lost track of what I wanted to do. So during that time, my aunt had a group home in Arizona for teenage girls in foster care. Oh. And I was like, can I please come? And she was like, absolutely. So I got all the things I need to clear to go ahead and volunteer for her business. And I fell in love. I was like, this is exactly what I want to do. So as the years were going, and as I was a mom of two and a young wife and working 2 jobs and still going to school, I was still like, this is it, Yeah. And I was like, I want to have a group home for foster girls, And then I had my third daughter, still really I still hadn't graduated yet. I was still back and forth. It took a long time.
At least you kept going back.
I did.
Yeah.
I kept going back. So, it was just, It was, I mean, as you can imagine, it was pretty hectic, you know, working a lot, having to raise small girls. I have all 3 girls, all girls.
Wow.
So that
That's
was,
a handful.
yeah, it was a lot, but I learned so much from them. I learned from them first before really anything else, to be real with you. So, but then I graduated with my undergrad in 2019. And then I started working for an STRTP in LA, and that's a short-term residential therapeutic program, and it's what they're replacing group homes in California. And so it's for high-risk behavior kids, like the girls who don't have anywhere else to go. Like none of the foster care homes are willing to accept them anyway. And it was pregnant and parenting. So it was very interesting, and it was, I fell in love again, and I was like, this is what I want to do. So now that I knew that they were closing down group homes, I was like, I want to open up an STRTP for girls in the foster care system that are pregnant and parenting. Like I knew exactly what I wanted. It's like as the years, right? I was like, all right, this is the game plan. This is what we're going to do. So I took the class that I needed to take for the certifications to get it, to be able to open one up. But of course, I'm still a young mom of 3 girls, you know, like, the timing just still wasn't right, but I knew what I wanted to do, and I knew like, it was just a matter of time. So then, but in order for me to have this group home and do what I want to do in it, because I would just hire a director, but I would do the therapy part, and then I would just be the owner of it, and then I'd be able to know, okay, make it a client focused, client-based program, instead of it just being like, oh, generally this is what we do. I'm like, no, we have this client here who wants to go to school for this. We have this client here who likes to play soccer. We have this client here. So we need to make sure that we make this program specifically client-based, right? And individually client-based. So, but I was like, I need to get my master's for therapy. Like I need to be able to have my license to be the therapist for what I want to create and build. So, then I went to get my master's, and I'm still in it. I'm now an intern. So that's the goal. But even on the journey to being the intern, and in between working at the foster care facility, I wanted to work with students, because working at the foster care facility, I realized that the issue was lack of education. These girls don't know that they can go to college for free. And I'm like, you were born and raised in the foster care system, and you're telling me nobody told you that you could go to university for free?
I didn't know that.
They don't know that. So they're thinking their only way, like they don't have a way out. They have no sense of hope. They have no sense of identity. They have nobody claiming them, nobody fighting for them. So they're just out here doing whatever they see. Yeah. And a lot of times you can only imagine the environments that they've been in and that they've come from, you know.
They do what makes sense.
Yeah, they do what makes sense. And they only know what they're exposed to. So if they're not exposed to another type of living, they don't know that a way out could be through college. They don't know that a way out could be like, let me go live on campus. How do I get out of my foster care housing? After I turn 18, after I turn 19, when I age out, where am I going to go? Yeah. What if you don't get into transitional housing? You know, like, thank God they do have those, you know, but what happens if you don't? What happens with all that? What are you going to do for work? They don't know, because nobody is actually teaching them and guiding them and how to get out of the system and how to maintain themselves outside of it. So when I saw that, I was like, I need to be a substitute teacher, because I'm going to be able to get the real of how they are when the teacher isn't there. I'm going to be able to see how they are in their environment at school. What does it look like? How are they talking to each other? How are they being? Because subs get the worst of the kids. Like, they're like, oh, a sub's here? Oh, bet. Like, we're going to go off. Even though they would try it, but I don't know. I usually have a really good connection with them. But anyways,
just real quick, just so I can get kind of like a more clear picture of the whole thing. Where is it? Where is all this taking place?
In California, Long Beach. I'm from Long Beach.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. And what age?
What age?
Are the substitute teachers and the foster kids?
The foster kids were high school,
Okay.
most of them high school. I had a couple middle school ones, but again, it was pregnant parenting. So
How big was the facility?
we had about 36 girls.
Oh man.
And then they had at least 1 or 2 kids each.
Okay.
And then we had a client that was about to be on her 3rd, but it was she was aging out. So.
And what's like the overall, I guess, kind of vibe in those facilities?
Oh, they're traumatic.
So it's a lot of trauma.
It's a very traumatic environment. If it's done correctly, it doesn't have to be, but unfortunately, people get burnt out and they get overwhelmed, and running the facilities can be difficult. It can be a lot of work, and what I've observed is that there's a lot of educated people running it without the experience. So I was able to relate to a lot of the girls because I technically, though I wasn't in foster care, I had my first daughter at 19. So, and we struggled. We struggled. We had to figure out between, buying diapers and like buying food for ourselves, or like, are we going to put gas in the car? Or are we going to, eat dinner tonight? Like, what are we gonna do? Like, it was rough. It was hard. So seeing these young girls not having anything, not having family, not having support, but yet they did have resources. And so I was like, look, the fact that you guys have food in the fridge, the fact that you guys have free daycare, so I was like, let's utilize what we have. It sucks that we're here. It's not fun. Nobody likes it, but let me show you how to make it, right? Let me show you how to
Can you
survive,
give it kind of like
yeah.
example of like what the average, like, I guess, I don't know what you don't call them really patient, but like average client
Mm-hmm.
that's living in one of these communities is like?
Average, like in terms
Just like
of
something that you'd get, like what kind of like the pattern that you'd see in the majority of them?
Ooh, there's a lot. I would obviously see that they came from underprivileged. A lot of them were sex trafficked, sold by their family members,
Oh my goodness.
sold by coming from the border, and on the way, like I had a client who on the way from, coming over the border with her mom, she got raped, so came here pregnant, and, then lost. Then her mom tried to kill her, and then she had to be taken away from her. Like, it's just extreme things.
How old?
She was 16. And then I had another client who was 12 and had her child taken away because she was using
goodness.
substances. A lot of them have substance abuse issues. Some of them become go into a psychosis state from the substance abuse, and they're so young.
Yeah.
So you're dealing with a teenager, hormones mixed in with the substance use, mixed in with the trauma that they're experiencing, and then you have clients who have triggers that you wouldn't necessarily think that it would be a trigger, like food. Why would food be a trigger? But it would be a trigger because your dad didn't feed you when he was getting mad at you for doing whatever, something simple, and wouldn't feed you for like 3 days. So then now you're upset because you wanted the yogurt that was downstairs, and then you got downstairs, you saw it, and now you're pissed, and nobody understands why. It's like, we got you yogurt. Why are you mad? But it's a trigger. So a patterns that I would see is parents saying that they were doing what they needed to do to get them, but not really doing it.
What usually happens with the parents? So it's like these kids are, of course, separated from their parents. Like, are the parents just kind of off doing their own thing, maybe probably using, or like?
Yeah, most of the time they're using. Most of the time they're under the influence of something, fentanyl, meth, alcohol, opiates, you name it. Honestly, like that would be why that they would take them, or physical abuse, or a lot of sexual abuse. Most of the time, I've never seen that was just like, oh no, that's not true. Not never. I saw a client that was there that she really didn't need to be. It was really the choices that she was making. And after being there for a while, she realized it. She was like, oh, dang. Like, and it sucked. It sucked to see her. And I was like, I'm glad that you're learning, but the environment is so those facilities are not the safest mentally. Like, and I could confidently say that, like, when fights would break out, it's like a whole lockdown. It's like a whole thing, you know, like punching the walls. These girls are pregnant and they're fighting pregnant. Like, these girls are pregnant. They're kicking each other in their stomach because they're not thinking about the consequences that come after. They're just focusing on the fact that they're upset, you know? And then, like, what do you think they saw when their parents, you know, their parents are still having kids. So, like, a lot of them still saw their moms be pregnant and still act however they're acting or still do whatever they're doing. And their parents would talk to them crazy, like, or if they had visitation, they'd come up and then they'd be smelling like whatever, you know, and it's like, oh, wow, your grandkid was in there with you and you were okay, you know, like, but it's, you're not trying to judge it. You're more just like, you're observing what they're dealing with and you're observing why they think the way that they think. And so it's heartbreaking because you're like, God, like you didn't have a chance. That's not fair. You know, for my client who was 13 on to her second kid, already got her first kid taken away because she was sold into sex trafficking by her mom. But her mom went to that facility. The facility was like over 100 years old.
How do people usually end up getting there? Is it like usually police intervention? Or is it? Yeah,
it's through the state. The state intervened in their home, and so like Children Family Services
like
or Child Family Services,
pretty much. And then they're like, you need to go somewhere else.
Yeah, and however the attention was brought to their household, it just changes. So if it was from the school, if it was from a neighbor, if it was from, you know, a family member, or whatever, and then they would end up at that facility because nobody else could take them. There were no housing available based off of the level of care that they needed. So if they had a history of AWOLing, like running away, or if they had a history of substance abuse, or if they had a history of, you know, schizophrenic tendencies, or, you know, psychosis episodes from whatever, you know, whether it be biological or chemically induced, every story was different.
Is there any medication like options for these kids?
There are, but there are. It's a matter of it's not a tricky situation. There are medications that are available for them. However, especially with children, it's not always like the most beneficial. It's really not, because it limits them in so many other ways. And I've seen the difference between when a client is clean, right? When no medication, right? But they're also clean off of whatever substances you're using. They're actually good. Like they're good. But then when they force them to still take that medication that was really just chemically induced, then they don't want to do anything else. They don't want to go to school. They don't want to, you know, participate in activities. They don't want to. They just isolate themselves, and then they actually get in a state of depression. Like that's what I saw all the time. Yeah. So when they would give them their medication for ADHD, or they give them their medication for anxiety, or they would, and I'm like, well, what if it was situational based? You know,
let's get them sober first, and
can
then
we get them
see
sober?
Like where we're at.
Yeah. And it was unfortunate to see.
And there's a lot of clients now, like working in substance use, that say their use started because they were given these medications as a child, especially with ADHD, and then it turned into meth use later on, and et cetera. So, yeah, I can see how that would lead to more issues at times.
Yeah, because they get comfortable. They get used to taking something, you know, to give them whatever it is that they're looking for. And if you're constantly in a survival or traumatic state, you know, and that's where you live, whether you're at home or whether you're taken away from your home and now you're in a new traumatic state with all these random people, could you imagine living in a girls full of teenagers? Like teenage girls?
Oh,
living in a house full of teenage girls. And then they all have traumatic experiences, whatever that might be.
They're all angry, probably.
They're all mad. They're all upset. And then a lot of times they're pregnant and they're parenting because of something that had nothing to do with them. Because of a situation, you know, a lot of them, again, like I said, were C-sec. They were sex trafficked. So sometimes like that was what was happening. That was their reality. And then they come here with a whole bunch of random people that they don't know, and all these people are just trying to tell them what they should be doing, and they're not given a reason why. And that's why I realized, like, oh, it's the education part. Nobody's teaching them why this matters. Nobody's showing them the connections of how to get out of where they're at. Your circumstances are the worst, right? Like nightmarish. Absolutely. Are you willing to let me show you how to get there? But before you even get there, you have to be willing to build the rapport. You know, how are you going to connect with them? And so a lot of the girls, when they would come in and speak with me, they would just be like, they're always talking about like all this clinical stuff. Like, I don't care about that. Like, I don't care about what you're saying. Like, why does it matter? And then I would come to them with like, how'd you sleep last night? Well, the baby was up all night. Oh yeah, I know what that's like. Okay, what happened? You know, like I'm connecting with them on the level that they are. And then I'm saying, I'm looking for the moments of influence. I'm looking for the moments of where they're being vulnerable, and then I can equally be vulnerable back in terms of how can I help you? Not in terms of like, oh, let me open myself and just like, you know, tell you all my deep dark secrets. No, it's more just like,
has to be
are you
purpose.
willing to, are you willing to allow me to show you how to make your situation into what you want it to be? So then I'd be like, okay, well, what do you want to do when you grow up? Well, I don't know. Okay, well, then let's think about it. And then I come back. Okay, well, you know what, miss? I actually thought about it. I actually want to be a vet. Really? You want to be a vet? That's crazy, you know? And then when all the staff would be like, I had no idea. Like, I had no idea that this client was even interested in this, or I had no idea that, like, yeah.
You have to get to know them.
You got to. I understand that you get busy and things, and you're just like, but you have to remember the purpose of why you're doing what you're doing. Don't lose it, you know? And that's what has always driven what I do.
You definitely have passion for it, I can tell.
Oh yeah. But it's honest, 100% it's God-given passion. Like, I had no idea this is something I would have ever chosen for myself. But if my friend hadn't, again, she was even just acquaintance at that time, but now she's my best friend. But she came up to me randomly and said, I want to do a group on campus for the girls in our high school, like,
randomly with you.
Randomly. I was like, what? And why does that sound like fun? Like, keep going, you know, like I would have never discovered that. So this is genuinely like a God-given passion.
Yeah. Kind of fell into it and then you found out you loved it.
Yeah, literally. And I fell into it early, you know, this could have waited. I didn't have to discover this until like now, you know, and I'm 32. So, but I've been working on this slowly, and though all the obstacles have came the way that they did, I'm grateful for them because I was able to learn so much. I would have never had the connection I had with the girls if I didn't get pregnant early. I would have never had the connection with the girls if I didn't have 3 daughters. You know, I would have never been able to build the rapport that I had with the majority of the clients in that facility. 36 of them, right? And I'm talking majority of them were close with me, you know? And I'm not saying that to toot my horn. I'm saying that because it actually does require passion. It actually does require you to give a crap and like invest your time and like your energy in them, and not in the sense of being burnt out, but being in the sense of being like, okay, you matter. Let me show you how you can do this. And it's not me coddling them or necessarily holding their hand. It's me being like, are you willing to listen to what I have to say so that I can show you something you probably didn't know on your own? Like, nobody taught you this. Why would you know that you can go to college for free? You guys have a caseworker. You guys have caseworkers. You guys have therapists. You guys have social workers, and nobody has told you this. And honestly, the list could go on. But just from those 3 alone, you know, no one told you that you can go to college for free. Nobody told you that when you turn 18 and you graduate high school, you can leave and go onto the campus for free first because you're a priority in the university. So you get to live there until you graduate. Nobody told you that? Yeah, that's your way out. That's your way out. And then on top of it, then you're learning. And then on top of it, then after you get your degree, then you can use that degree to get a good paying job and to provide for yourself and provide for your kid. And then your kid gets to see you graduate because you had a kid early. Like, there's so many options for you. And the resources that they did provide for them on the facility was amazing. I was like, girl, you don't have to worry about figuring out if you're going to buy diapers over food. They give you diapers for free. They give you formula for free. They give you food for free. Let me show you how to utilize this because I wish I could have had this, you know? So like, if I didn't have the struggle, I wouldn't have been able to relate to them in that way. If I didn't have to make those choices on my own, I wouldn't have been able to do that or say that to them.
Yeah, life experience goes a long way, I think. And then combined with the education as well, it's like you'll be able to help anyone, really.
Yeah.
And so when you first started, well, I know you've done a couple different things. So which one did you have like a life-changing moment in?
Oh my gosh, all of them. All of them. The facility was definitely the most life-changing. It was definitely a moment of hindsight. I did not realize how mad I was at God for letting me get pregnant at 19. Now, not saying I should have had, like unprotected sex at 19 years old. Like that was on me, right? Like 100%. But it was so hard.
Yeah.
It was so hard, and I was just like, Lord, everybody else. I went to a Christian university. Okay, I went to a Christian university and I had to drop out early, and I was like not the only Christian in my family, but like there's not a lot of us. So when they found out that I was pregnant, having to drop out of a Christian university, they're like, Courtney, I thought you went to a Christian school.
Oh, gosh.
No, I was like, I am, but I'm still human, like I still
and grace here.
literally. So it was, it sucked because I was like, Lord, everybody else on this campus is doing the exact same thing. Why did you let me go through this? Like I had a plan and I was doing it all for you. Like I have like this whole thing. I was like, I wanted to have my PhD by 28. Like, how are you going to do this to me? And then when I started working at the facility and I started realizing how these girls were literally like it was like moth to a flame. And it was not on purpose. And I was like, what's happening? Like, I don't know what's happening. They would request me all the time. I would be overwhelmed with the amount of love and the care and the way that they genuinely like wanted to listen to what I had to say to them. And I was like, you guys like the foster care kids are known to repel everybody. They're like, F you, everybody, because that's what everybody did to them. So the fact that they were like that towards me, I was honored, completely honored.
Because you care, and they can tell.
Yeah.
You can't fake that.
Yeah, it was. And so that moment was like a hindsight moment. I remember literally on my way home, I was driving home and I was crying, just grateful, just so grateful. And I was like, Lord, I'm so sorry for being so mad at you for as long as I was, because I see why. I see why you let me go through this. He could have given me grace in my mistakes, but instead he let me learn from them. And that was way better than what I had planned. So the struggle was worth it, 100% worth it.
And you still get to do everything you want to do and probably more.
Yeah.
Because you had a couple stops on the way.
Oh my gosh, so much more.
Yeah.
So I get to do so much more than anything that I would have like planned on my own. My plans they're trash compared to what God is like, oh, this is what I'm actually going to do. Like what the enemy meant for evil, he meant for good, and he means it, and my life has literally portrayed that in all the ways. So even me being a substitute teacher, I loved it. Like I still do it part-time when I'm not, doing the internship, but I loved it. The kids are awesome. I mainly worked with like the middle school kids. Taught a long-term assignment for algebra, taught a long-term assignment for language arts. And they were tough, but they were fun. I had a great time.
Is it the kids that were also in the foster home that you're being a substitute for?
No, it was for the Long Beach School District.
Okay.
So for the students in the algebra class, it was like a pretty well-known school in Long Beach, and they were like the honors kids, like it was like, it was an algebra class in 8th grade. Usually you just take like regular math class, but it was known to be like, okay, these are the kids who are going to go in geometry in 9th grade rather than algebra. So it was a challenge for me because math isn't my strong suit, but it was like, I could still teach it. So I was like, okay, this is what we're doing. But it was really cool. I learned a lot. in terms of how to communicate and what is important in education system, as a teacher, as an educator, and then what I see the kids need, and then learning like, okay, this is how you teach this kid who's more of a visual learner, and then this one's more of a logical learner, and then so just like learning the different ways of how kids understand information and take in information. So that was important. I need to know that, for me to do what I want to do with the foster kids. So, and then the next year, I ended up working at a inner city school in Long Beach, and it was challenging. It was definitely a behavior issue. The year before that, it was not behavior. They were very easygoing kids. The school had its behavior issues, but my classes were great. But the second school that I went to, the inner city school, it was an extreme behavior challenge. Now, I'm not new to that, and so it wasn't like, oh my God, for me, but I was like, oh, okay, I'm seeing how things need to be structured, and so at every experience that I've had, at all the jobs, all the different locations, I see what I need to learn, and I'm like, all right, Lord, what are you showing me? What do I need to take from this? And then, okay, let me take it and run with it. How do I apply it to my life? How do I apply it to the career that you're having me go into? How do I apply it, period? So.
And now that you're working in substance use, how do you think that applies to your future goals? Like your internship and everything.
So I have realized that adults who have gone through things are a lot easier to deal with than children who have gone through things but have not experienced the consequences of them. Adults have experienced the consequences of their decisions. They have gone to jail, they have been homeless, they have, all the grown-up things that as a kid you try to tell them, like, look, if you keep doing this, you're going to end up homeless. Right. If you keep doing this, you're going to end up on the street. If you keep doing this, you're going to end up whatever. And they're like, psh, whatever, but to come here, I was like, oh my gosh, these are the after effects of what I need to help my clients to avoid. Like I'm seeing it firsthand. I'm experiencing it firsthand. I'm having conversations firsthand, having therapy sessions one-on-one. And I don't want to say it, but it's like, this is what I want to help my clients to avoid. You know what I'm saying? I don't want them to have to come here. Yeah. I don't want them to have to experience, have a story like this. You already had a rough story. Right. Why do you want to add to it? Life is already hard. When you make certain decisions, it just makes it harder. So you were dealt a shitty hand. It's not fair. You're absolutely right. I'm vouching for you with it. I'm validating your experiences. How do we make it stop? And I know that nothing has ever shown you that there is a way of stopping it, because you saw it with your mom, saw it with your dad, you saw it with your granny, you saw it with all your cousins. You see it everywhere. You see it with all your friends. Your whole environment is only this. It's only traumatic experiences,
What is the, typical, I don't know how you could really gauge it, but success rate? Because, I guess you probably haven't, been working with the client as long as, you would really need to be able to see, what happens afterwards, right? But what's what would you say the usual success rate is of
success rate of
one of the foster? So it seems like to me, the goal is to advocate for them enough to be able to do well in school and get them into a college program, right? What is the success rate of people that are actually able to do that?
So I was there for 2 years, and I didn't see it happen once.
Wow.
I didn't see it happen one time.
What do they usually do?
Nothing.
Wow.
Nothing. It's even hard for them to get a job.
That's so sad.
It is. It's unfortunate.
Because they do have resources. It sounds like there are resources for people in foster care that have been, sex trafficked and, pretty much every bad thing that you could imagine have happened to you, right? But it's just kind of getting them to take the resources. That's your job, right? Is to advocate for them to take the resources. But
I've seen clients take resources, right, and actually utilize them and make it their own and almost there. And then they don't get the support that they need from the village, like their staff, you know, the therapists, the case managers, the social workers, literally working against them.
Wow.
And I can say that with confidence. It's unfortunate, but it's true. I've seen that. Can
you give me an example, or can you give me like you don't have to use names, but like an example of that?
I'm trying to figure out which one I want to use. Lord.
It happens that much?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's tough, man. It's
just
tough.
so I can kind of see like the picture of maybe somebody watching this could try to do something better, basically.
Okay. I had a client who was in CSEC, and she was...
What's CSEC?
CSEC is sex traffic.
Okay.
And her mom sold her into sex trafficking early. And so she... at 10, actually.
Jeez.
And then her mom sold her at 10. You know, so it was just like a generational thing. And she grew up, born and raised in foster care herself. And then she also had...
The mom?
The mom.
Okay.
And then the client... She was also born and raised in foster care. And
how old was the mom, just out of curiosity?
She was 16 when she had her, from what I know.
Okay.
She was 16. And so when she had her first kid, my client, she was about 13, 12 and a half, 13? I can't remember, but one of those. And we were trying to, she had her second daughter, and we were like, she was really determined on doing this right, really determined on getting this right? She was only 14 at this time. And her daughter, her oldest, is already in foster care, working to try to get her back. And she went into a program where she got certificates of like graduating from a CSEC program, you know, which is a huge accomplishment. It really was. She was going to classes, getting all her stuff done, just like, you know, they would teach them resources on and educating them on how to prevent this from happening more and things to look out for, you know, people who are dangerous, people who might try to do it again to you, you know, just educating them. And then like how to be successful out of it. How do you still make money, and how do you still, you know, gain skills and tools for you to be successful outside of something that they consider, it is lucrative, you know, being a sex trafficker, it is lucrative, but it's just extremely dangerous, you know, like it's so dangerous, especially being a child in the foster care system. Nobody's looking out for you. Like it's just like so much on top of it, you know, it's already a very strenuous job, I could imagine. So she graduated, and she invited everybody to go to her graduation. And nobody went. Nobody went to her graduation. And before that moment, she was working up to like, you had to earn, you know, visitation time to go see your daughter. Yeah, I mean, not necessarily earn visitation time, but you had to earn time to leave the facility and like go out for 4 hours or go out overnight somewhere to your whoever's house, had to be approved, you know. And she would do all the right things for months, and they would ding her for being like 5 minutes late or like 2 minutes late or like something small. And I was like, okay, you guys, let's give her some grace, you know, like it
seems like it's kind of like the whole crabs in a bucket situation.
It's more of like it's unfortunate because it was more of like a pick and choose. So with other clients who were very flipping tables, throwing stuff on the wall, crashing the whole kitchen, like destroying, oh my gosh, they would destroy things, they would start fights, they would, and then demand like, I want some Wingstop. And if they didn't have money, most of the time the rule was, well, if you don't have money, you can't pay for it, you can't get it. But they would still have an allowance every week. And so they still had money, you know, to have, but if they spent it all and they didn't have anything, well, you can't get it. And then on top of it, your behavior's been wild. So no, but it would be clients who would just be extreme like that. And then just to have them be quiet, they would just give them. And so for clients who were actually doing what they were needed to do and making sure that they were on time, getting all their, you know, ducks in a row, they would be dinged for like the smallest little things.
Because they weren't scared of them.
Because they weren't afraid of them. They were like, you know, like you need to learn, you know, you need to, I'm like, but what, okay, I get it. I get what you're saying. I get what you're trying to do. But we also need to give grace and learn when grace is deserved, you know?
Yeah, it's like they're almost bullying the people for doing like
and
the right
give them
thing.
some sort of reward.
And nobody went to her graduation. And I was telling them before all of that, I was like, you guys, we're going to lose her. If we keep doing this, you know, we need to have better boundaries, but also like better grace for her. And I was like,
and what roles were these people supposed to be? Like therapists, like
therapists? They were like directors or supervisors or managers, the caseworkers. You know, I wasn't in contact a lot with their social workers, but if I had to, I was. If I could go to all the meetings, I would. Like,
what was your role there? Was it case manager?
I was a residential counselor. So I was like taking care of them, like basically.
Ground floor.
Were on the ground floor for all the fights, for all the arguments, for all the situations. Like they need to go to the mall to go shopping, I'm taking them. They need to go get food, I'm going. Like they need whatever they need, that's what I'm doing, right? So I got to see a lot of things. I was right in front of them. So then I was telling them one time, like, you guys, we're going to lose her. They're like, yeah, but okay, so we're trying to implement like more softer tones. Or I was like, okay, I'm going to be real. I'm going to be 100% with you. She was an African American. In the African American community, we do not respond well to soft voices. Meaning, if I hear a soft voice, that's not going to do much. We are extremely direct. It's no nonsense. So you got to be, if we're not doing something correctly, you need to tell us, you know, or if we are doing something correctly, tell us, you know. We're very much so,
black and white, or
not black and white, but direct.
Yeah.
We're very direct, you know, don't beat around the bush. Tell us what we need to know, you know. And like, if the whole like, oh, maybe you shouldn't do this. No. Don't do this. What are you doing? You know? And they're like, well, we don't want to be culturally insensitive. I said, that's not.
That's being
I said, that's literally, we are speaking to the client in the way that they know how to be spoken to. We're meeting them where they are. What do you mean? Like, we're taught this in school, you know, like we're actually taught this in our programs. So why are you acting like this is culturally inappropriate? It's not. Yeah. And then nobody went to her graduation. What do you think happened? She went right back. She went right back on the streets, and then lost her daughter, her last daughter, ended up getting sex trafficked all over again.
Who was expected to go? Like, was it like
her therapist,
her caseworker, the people on her team,
other people at her? Wow, so her whole team, like all of her advocates, just didn't show up.
I think it was only one person with like a small thing of flowers. No, they said I couldn't go because I wasn't on like the hours or something like that. And they're like, we're trying to make sure that there's boundaries and stuff. And they were pretty strict with stuff like that. And I was just like,
so one person went
out of like 6-7 people at least.
And then like not including the other people at the foster home.
Yeah.
Okay.
And everyone just wants to be seen and heard, and like that's all she needed.
She just wanted to make sure see if it worked. Like if she did the right thing, like, will this actually work?
And literally not even a week later, she was back on the streets.
It's so sad.
Everybody does need some type of like validation sometimes, I think.
Yeah.
And encouragement and
direction. Because her whole life they didn't get it.
And she's like, now what? Like, what am I doing all this for? They're not giving them the why. You have to give them the why. Otherwise, they're going to keep going back. They're going to keep going back to what they know. This is what she knows. This is her comfort zone. Yeah. It's an unfortunate comfort zone to have, but it's all she has.
That's so sad.
It's all she has. So you expect her to do something that, first of all, she don't even know you, right? She don't even know you like that. You expect her to be receptive to anything that you're saying. And you don't already support her or nothing, then you ding her for every little thing, things that have nothing to do with her. The bus was late. Well, that's too bad. You should have made time for that. It's like, well, she actually got on the early bus. Then something happened. Then she could, like, she would have legit reasons. She would have legit excuse. She would have calling, any communication. It's still, and I was like, you guys are doing it. You can't do this. I'm telling you, it's going to backfire. It's going to backfire. And then they would even be like, okay, Courtney, what do you think? And I'd be like, well, this is what I think. I think this is how she do. Okay, we're going to go with it. We're going to go with something else. I was like, okay, all right. I literally said, we'll see how this plays out. We'll see how it plays out. And it would always go the way I was like, okay.
Yeah.
All right. We did the best we could. I did the best I could. I know a couple other staff who did the best they could. But for the people who were in control or could have made certain decisions that should have been implemented, it just didn't go the way that it needed to go.
So sad to see. It's honestly so sad. It's really sad to hear that, like, I mean, so it's like on one hand, you kind of do, it is commendable, the government, that it's like,
That
they're
have
giving
some resources.
Yeah, that there's resources, right? But then it's on the other hand, it's like, it seems like there's this pattern, like, within the system, right? Where I don't know why those people didn't go. Maybe they just didn't believe, or maybe they just been kind of burnt out or like jaded from the whole thing. And like, they're just like, oh, well, like maybe they can't take the heartbreak of going to somebody's graduation and then seeing it not work out. I don't know, but it seems like a sad, like series of patterns pretty much, like, especially for the people that were sex trafficked, because, it's like somebody having a baby young and then having a baby that has a baby that's young, and then it's like there's generations of people going through this same foster system or foster care home, and then it's like these people are probably seeing the same pattern over and over again. It's just, I don't know, what do you think the solution to this whole thing is?
Allowing them to get their why. You need to educate them. That is literally that is it. You have to be willing to educate them. But before you even do that, you have to be willing to like hear them out and meet them where they are. Otherwise, they won't be willing to be educated. Yeah. So like, we're always like, oh, here are the resources, guys. Like, we see it here, here are the resources, you guys. We have all these resources, all these free tools. And they're like, if they don't know how to use the tools, you give them toolbox to do what? They don't know. They're just going to scratch their head with it. What does this toolbox have to do with me? It has nothing to do with me. You guys are just giving me these random things, right? And you guys are saying this is what I could do with it. Okay, but then what? So you have to, it's more than just, here are the resources. Here's a piece of paper with all this information. Here's this website. You have to like walk them through, and not out of coddling, but out of educating. Yeah. And I'm like, let me show you how to do it so that when it's time for you to do it, you know what to do. And if you need, okay, well, I still don't know what to do when I have it. Okay, thank you for telling me. Now, this is how you do it. I'll walk you through with it. And then now you gave them the confidence for them to be able to do it on their own. So it's like, it's not a reliance factor. I'm actually teaching you how to be independent. And I need you to be independent, because I'm not going to always be here. That's why I'm very big on like making sure that I don't burn out. I'm very big on the boundaries, because I'm like, no, I actually walked through you with this. I walked through this with you. Thank you.
Yes.
I rock through this with you, and I do that with the adults. I do it with the students, it's the same thing. I do it with younger clients, with older clients. I see that you don't have your why. I'll give it to you, but you have to be receptive enough to be able to receive it. But it's not their responsibility to do that. It's my responsibility to meet you at your level so that you are willing to receive it. Because I get why your boundaries are up. I get why you got a 20-foot thick wall, 100-foot tall. I get it. Yeah, I understand. It's my job to figure out how to get over that. It's not your job, because life has showed you to not let it down. Every person has let you know why, has justified the reason why you have it up. So it's my job to figure out, how do I go about this and let them know that I'm a safe person to go over this wall. How do I do that? That's not their job to figure out.
It's true. It is true.
So how do you think you give the people, like, what like thing in the system could you change, like the education of the advocates, to have more of them, give them the why? Or like maybe like with the therapists, like, do you think that there could be something that like is changed within, I don't know, like I don't know what you call it, like therapeutic model, like, because it seems like what you're saying is like, it's almost up to the people.
It is. Honestly, it really has to do with how, it has to do with staffing, because everything will fumble.
Leadership.
It has to do with leadership. It has to do with staffing and making sure that the, leader is leading everybody correctly and well, because then all the people that you're assisting and helping are going to get and reap the benefits of how well your staff is being taken care of and how well you're, and then it'll literally take care of itself. It'll take care of itself. So if you have leadership who's willing to accommodate the needs of the staff first, right? And then allow them the tools to be able to be successful. And it's not just like, okay, here's some random training. It's like, actually, let me meet y'all. Let me show you how to do this. I'm going to show you how to do it effectively. I'm going to show you how to do it in the way that you need it to be done because this is how you work. It's not going to be for everybody. It's not this is how you do it and follow this exact plan. Everybody's different. So you have to be willing to be like, okay, who did I hire? How do they learn? Okay, this is how they learn. All right, cool. Let me figure out a way to teach them in the way that they can so that they can understand it. And now they can properly do their job effectively and well. How do we avoid burnout? You can't have one person with 1 million clients. You can't do it. It's impossible. You cannot expect your staff and your directors and stuff to have to be burnt out. So how do we avoid that? How do we avoid them feeling like that? Like you said, like they probably didn't go to her thing because they were probably tired. I completely agree with you. They probably were, but unfortunately, that was something that could have been avoided. And people think that burnout isn't avoidable. It is. It is. You just have to figure out what that looks like. But the person in charge also has to identify how to avoid this. You have to in order for the things to run smooth. Otherwise, your workers are exhausted. Now your clients are not getting what they need. And now everything falls. Everything is going to fall. So when I saw that was that's where it's stemming from, I was like, oh, bet if this is run well, if I can make an STRTP, know what I need to do to run it well, and this will be successful. It will be everything because this isn't my baby. This is God's baby. I know that, right? I know that it is. So with that being the case, he has been very slow in teaching me in how things need to be run. That's why I've been collecting all the information from all the jobs the way that I have. And I'm like, well, Lord, what are you showing me? What are you teaching me? And that was the thing that he taught me there was the staffing was, I was like, okay, all right, this is what we got to do.
I totally agree with that. I love that.
So, I'm extremely grateful for the experiences. I've learned a lot. This is nothing against anybody because I understand. I remember doing that job and actually getting burnt out because I was trying to do everything. I was trying to save everybody. And God was like, girl, if you don't sit down, I need you to sit down. And I was like, but God, he's like, you're not me. I need you to sit down somewhere. I brought you here to see and to learn and observe, but you cannot be the savior for everybody. So when, even with my clients now, I'm like, I'm available this time. I'm available here. But when you got me, you have me. Like, what are we doing today? You need help with applications? Let me show you an easy way to do it. I'm very, look, work smarter, not harder. We're not going to work harder. If you need to do something, you don't know how to do it. Let me show you all the things and all the ways that we can do it so that when you don't have me here, you know how to do it on your own. Right? So I'm giving them the tools and the resources, teaching them, walking them through it, right? Without just being like, okay, this is what you got to do. Have fun. It's like, no, you got to learn how to do it. Sometimes you do need your hand held. Not forever, but sometimes you do. You just need that little, Yeah,
I think push. That's what you have to learn through working in these systems because there's always somewhere where it's going to need improvement and it's going to let you down and you're going to have barriers. So what can we do about it? And how can we work around it for the people?
It's hard on both ends, from the patient to the staff to everything, the system itself, the government, it's just like a never-ending cycle, it seems.
And with the government, for example, these kids are the government's kids and the social workers are like their parents, right? And I feel bad for the social workers because they have 200 clients.
And it's just heartache after heartache or failure after failure. So then they're just
and then you're burnt out and then you're overworked.
I've seen this before. She graduated the program, give it 2 weeks, give it a week. What they don't understand is they're the ones that are contributing to the cycle.
So then how do we stop that? And it has to do, like you said, with leadership. How what kind of leader are you going to present yourself to be to run a successful whatever it is that you're running, you know? So with this, I was like, I mean, I've been gathering people now. They're like, Courtney, have you opened it yet? You know, like, are we doing this yet? And I'm still communication, like, hey, get ready, you know, or like, okay, guys, I've taken this class, or I'm going to do this, or I'm still collecting, you know, staff who I trust. And I'm like, oh, you have the right heart for this. We can do this. You know, when I get it ready and when I get it open, I'm calling you. And they're like, I'm just waiting. Like, I'm literally waiting. I'm like, so I'm grateful. I'm grateful for all the connections. And I'm grateful for all the people. You can't teach people how to care, though.
Right.
So you do have to be very choosy with who you decide to have on your team to make sure that it does run like a smooth engine. Because building any type of business or nonprofit is going to be difficult, but it doesn't have to be in certain areas. There are things that's going to naturally be difficult. There are things that are going to be naturally challenging, but there are also ways that I can avoid certain challenges. And so knowing and identifying what that is and what that looks like, who's a good fit, who's not, who can I work well with, you know, as a leader, I don't work well with these type of people. Okay, maybe I just shouldn't hire. It's nothing against them. I just know that for me, it wouldn't be a good fit because I'm just not, or there are certain ways that I know that I lack. And so I actually need to hire somebody to help me in this area because Lord Jesus, you know,
If
like I
it's
can't.
math, no, thank you.
Oh yeah. You know, like, you got that. You're very logical. I'm extremely creative. So like I can create things, but when it comes to rules, I'm like, oh wait, okay, I don't know. You know,
And what leader, what role did the leader of that company play? Like, were they what were they?
For the person that was over that part of the facility, she was a supervisor.
Did she have any credentials?
She did. She was a doctor.
She was a doctor?
Yeah, she had her doctorate in psychology, and she was like, she was awesome. She really was awesome. And she ended up leaving because of other pressures from her bosses and I was like, you know, everybody's just not understanding because they're also not on the ground floor. And so I made my voice very loud in that building, and some people loved it and some people didn't, but I just didn't care because I was like, it's for the clients. I understand how you feel. I understand that your master's degree looks beautiful on that piece, in that, you know, plaque. And that's great. However, she needs this, or however we're talking to her wild and she needs more assistance, or she needs a new social worker because her social worker literally told her that she could die and she wouldn't care.
Oh my God.
You know,
what the heck? A social worker said that? Wow.
You would be so surprised.
Wow.
The amount of things. And it's wild because the most, like, the clients with the like riskiest behavior, they would always have like the most laid back social workers, like super chill, give them whatever they want. But the clients who were doing everything right would have like social workers from hell. And you're just like, if you were on the street, if I knew what you looked like, you know, it was hard. It was so hard sometimes dealing with them. However, again, like I said, I understand what they're probably experiencing, because I've heard it from so many different social workers. Like, they're burnt out, they don't get paid enough, you know, they have their own personal things happening on top of 200 clients that they got to take care of. Like, that's insane. You know, that's a lot of houses to have your eyes on, a lot of kids that you got to have your eyes on. So I understand that if you have great leadership, then you can have great staff and your clients would be well taken care of. Period. It literally trickles down. It's as simple as that. It sounds simple, right? But like, it is possible.
It's just another piece of the system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it is possible. It really is.
Yeah.
Do you have any final thoughts about anything? I mean, I know we went over a lot.
Yeah, we did.
I don't know, like maybe like words to one of the girls in that situation, and then maybe some words to like somebody that is from a social worker.
I could equally say something to both that would mean different things to them, but I could say the same thing, and I would say to find your why. Why are you doing what you're doing? You know, if you're in a leadership position, if you're a caseworker, a social worker, working in the foster care system, why? Find your why. And if you're a client, or if you're in the foster care system, or if you are using substances or whatever, you know, it is that you're going through, find your why, because then you can find the solution. But if you're not concerned about the why, you're going to be stuck. You're going to be in the same thing. Mm-hmm.
Well, I appreciate you coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you guys.
Really awesome.
Thank
that.
you.
Thank you.
No problem, you guys.